All right. I am incredibly honored to be able to introduce this man. It really is this incredible reality of the body of Christ. Lip-Bu Tan came into my life, I can't even know now how many years ago, but it was from the cycles and practices of what church does. And where I met Lip-Bu was I was a mentor to one of his teenage sons. So confirmation did it, Dave Carranza. And from that time on, Lip-Bu and his amazing, amazing wife, Ysa, every time they come into my presence, they are just there, welcoming with the Spirit of Christ. And it's such an honor to be able to have Lip-Bu here today. So thank you, Lip-Bu.
I assume this one is working. Sometimes technology is hard to predict. So many familiar phrases, and so delighted to be back to First Press here. And I was born in, I think, first of all, I think today I would describe three parts of my life. One is, a little bit about my personal life. And second part is, I know a lot of young people here, and hopefully will inspire you on the career side and how God can lead you in your life. And then finally, I think the most important is my faith journey in Christ, and happy to share with you. So I was born in the Christian family. My mom and dad are deacons in the church, and my grandfather actually is a pastor in China. And so I always pray to God, please don't call me to be a pastor. I'm not good at it. And I will be a very effective elders. And so far he kind of listened to my prayer. And I have one older brother and then three sisters. I'm the youngest. And then you can tell from my family, there's a lot of pressure to be in this family. My brother is a Rhodes Scholar, and then he's a heart surgeon, and then he's also a professor, and then he do artificial heart. And so when people are dying, and he replaced the heart. And he always said that, like the Bible, I think it's Psalm 139, and that the creation, even his own invention on artificial heart, is not the same as God's creations. And that's something that he was really a good witness. And then he lived in Cambridge, and then so the other sister, one is the marine biologist, and she passed away recently. And then she can name every animals in the ocean. And then the sister that is a pharmaceutical Harvard professor. So you know that how much pressure to live in this family. And then my mom is a tiger mom. And so all my brothers, sister, they all have to be, piano performance. And then my sister actually want to be a composer. And my mom said, no, you have to have a real job. And my brother want to be a professional basketball. He said, no, you have to make a living. And so that is interesting. When the youngest one came along, she's too tired. And so let me do anything that you like to do. So I only have a grade 1 of piano. And because on the way to piano, I love catch spider, and I love some of the different animals. So eventually I drop up from the music. And then and I love basketball, and later on I'll share with you more about my basketball. And so it's kind of the environment I grew up with, and so something that I look back, I appreciate my mom gave me the freedom, and I can do a lot of things that I like to do actually, become my strength actually when I do the work. And you may be surprised I have 100 fighting fish, and then each of the fighting fish actually I grown and they born, and I have 100. Each one have their name, and then I have to rank them every day, and then who was the number one. And so with that, I do a lot of multitasking, and I thanks my mom able to help me to do that. So anyway, that is a little bit. If I can click, I don't know, you can see it. So that's my mom and me. And then you can tell I'm pretty naughty boy. So I think among the siblings, I'm the naughty one. And so that's how I grown up. And then this may be another one. That is my, I don't think I changed much. And and I have a chin that is interesting. Later on, I'll share you. You know, usually from Singapore to Malaysia, we take the very fast taxi drive, and then usually have to stop by a place, and it's a small town, and to get some food. And then one day, we were just sitting down, my mom and dad, and then if you see some kung fu movie, and there's a man with a long beard, white beard, and then stay at our table and go straight to our table. My mom and dad was so worried. And then he kind of gave me the prediction who I'm going to be. And I would just completely ignore that. But later on, it turned out to be true. You know, the high school, I was really enjoy and the high school in Singapore. And even though I grown up in the church, every Sunday we go to some Bible study. And until that camp that I went to, the high school camp. And the teacher actually is a lady preacher. And then he taught this, very familiar story to all of you. And then it's the Bible story that Jesus asked Peter, "Do you love me?" 3 times. And I was struggling with that, even though I know all the Bible study. That's the first time I touched it. Jesus loved me. And so that I become the born-again Christian. And so that is John 21, 15 to 17. And that's something that I really had the first experience with Christ. And then some of you are young, and then for your career, my mom is a big impact to me. That's why a lot of picture about my mom. And then here's a prayer. And also something that I cannot follow her. She can recite 139. It's a very long psalm by heart. And I don't think I can do that. And he always asking me to do that, at least first portion, then second portion, and third portion. And it's just hard to do. And one thing good about my mom, he always taught me, when we assign you a small thing, do it with wholeheartedly and do well. And the big thing will give it to you. More responsible will give it to you. Turned out to be a very good value for me to learn. And then sometimes I look at my grandkids, they're not quite clearly. One practice my mom, you cannot finish, if you don't finish your plates, you can't leave the table. And even today, I'm still trying to finish up my plates. And if not, then I'll take home and don't put to waste. And so that's something that younger generation not quite appreciate that. So we're trying to teach them. Then I moved to college, Nanyang Technology University. And that is where I learned my physics. And usually it's a 4 years program. I think I finished in 3 years. And that's something that I decided to kind of pursue something else. And then one thing is I really enjoy is being a basketball player. And then so I win championship from my college, and then I play power center. So you can tell the one that in the middle is me. And so I play power forward, and then my two big players is Michael Jordan and LeBron James, and they are the two best players. And then always admire what they're doing. And even though in Singapore I'm supposed to be the quite tall person, so I play power forward in the center, and then so I usually score about 35 points a game. And so as you can tell, I'm quite popular in the school. And but one thing I did is at my college, I was president of a Christian fellowship, and I thought I'd done a good job. We have the biggest fellowship members, and we expand a lot. We even go out to preaching. So we went to Malaysia, East Malaysia, and then a lot of this province area, and he's starting to realize that the demon process, and then how to address that, and then being a young Christian, you are very, inspired that in the name of Christ you can chase that, and so learn a lot about the real spiritual warfare, and even some of this black magic, they kind of certain hours, then you're starting to have pain, and then really kind of address you in that way. And I learned a lot about that, how this spiritual warfare, and it's very real. And then our Jesus is much stronger. But I think clearly, you're starting to experience that spiritual warfare is real. One mistake I make is I try to do too many tasks, and when I run the Christian fellowships, and then and I have a staff team, and then because I work so hard with them, some of them didn't finish their school, so I had to do one more year. Then I'm starting to realize it's more important is the process and with God, not by the task. And then I learned that a lot, being a task-oriented person. So I think with that, I went to graduate school, and I got many offers, but I decided energy is a bigger problem. And but I think I'm 30 years ahead of time. So I went to nuclear engineering at MIT, and then I didn't finish a PhD because of 3 Mile Island accident, and so no new power plant built in US. So I decided I didn't finish my PhD, and I moved to the West Coast. And that's the only one resume I wrote throughout my life. And then that resume actually, EDS Nuclear in San Francisco hired me. And then initially the interview, I said, wow, that's great. 3 days holiday, come to stay in San Francisco, tour the San Francisco, only half a day of interview. And then good surprise, they give me an offer. And my mom thought that I'm something in trouble, either it's in drug or something. How come you didn't finish a PhD? So he sent my brother to kind of check me out, see whether I'm really in good shape or it's kind of in drug or some different influence. My brother came by, spent 3 days with me, and then he sent my mom, he's fine, don't worry. So I think one of my professors really helped me a lot. And then, to be candid with you, my thesis professor, nuclear reactor thesis professor, and then he passed away already. He told me very bluntly, he said, Lippo, I don't have Chinese student for my PhD, and don't get expecting any grant from me. And so unfortunately, I like his class, and then I like his thesis for my PhD, but he don't want to give me any TA or associate or a research assistant. So I'm very glad that the chair of the department have pity on me, so he gave me a project to do to pay my tuition. And then later on, I helped my professor to put the paper grant from EPRI, and then for the grant. And then, so he reluctantly had me as a student, and then doing the research. But I input inside there's a typing budget. So when I want to finish PhD, I don't even have to type. I said, well, you're going to be on vacation, so why don't I use your secretary and use your office to finish my master? So my 2 kids still laughing at me. I cannot I still use one finger to type. And because I have that interesting background. So I think one of the professors, this Torres, is still alive. He gave me a very good parting advice. He said that keep your eye open and take calculated risks. That has been the great advice for me. They thought I share with you how I use that for multiple learning for me. So from EDS Nuclear, and then I moved into a startup. 3 of the people came by asking me to join them. They know that I'm very good in software programming. And so they said, valuable, can you join us as a founding 4-person? So I did that. And so, by the way, you're the youngest. So by default, you're going to be a CFO. And I said, what does CFO do? He said, well, just balance book. And I said, what kind of book had to balance? And so it doesn't seem like I know anything. He said, okay, well, we send you to USF and University of San Francisco to take your part-time evening class for MBA. So being very smart. But before that, I need to show you one chart. This is my lovely wife, Ysa. And I met her at First Press. And then in the Bible study class at home, and then for family. And that's how I met her. And some of you know her quite well. And I'm very brave to ask her to marry me for 12 times. And she turned down every single one. And then some of you know her well. She's very, very, have her own mind. And then at the end, they say, well, nothing personal. I just don't want to get married. I said, okay, at least a consolation. You don't want to get married, not because of me. And even motivating for me to continue persuading. One day he said, well, let's get married. And I said, okay. And then when I come to propose to your father and mother, he said, no need. Just put together a photo portfolio, and I will talk to my mom and dad in Malaysia. So that's how I got to get married, and first time met up the in-law for the wedding. And so that's how Ysa works. So I'm delighted to have her. She helped me grounded. And a lot of time when sometimes you're a little bit success, you get into your head. And then she's the one that cannot bring me down to the ground, make sure that I'm grounded. And so that has been a great blessing. And that First Press means a lot to me. And we have 3 wonderful grandkids. And before that, this is my 2 boys, Andrew, and let's see, I think this is mentored by, I think, right there, thank you. And then, so Andrew is the older one, and the younger one is Elliott. I think they're all grown up at Berkeley First Press, and some of you know, and thanks for taking care of them. And then, so this is a family, and then, some of you know I always sit at the upper stair of the balcony. I think some of you see me, I think we get to know each other well. And then for some reason, Mark Leberton reached out to me and asked me to join the session, join the elders. And so I was surprised. Usually I had to go through like seafarers and others, and then they recommend, but somehow he reached out to me. So that reminds me of, remember the Bible study, Luke 19, 10 to 1 to 10, Jesus called the tax collector from the tree, and he come down. And I feel the same way. And finally, I kind of said, well, even though I'm not the tax collector, but I think feel the same way that Mark somehow reached out to me, asked me to serve in the session, and then I learned a lot about the First Press. And so I think that's a very nice transition to my spiritual life. And then because of that, over time, and I also have a luxury to serve on the Regent College board with Susan Phillips. And that sometimes you join a organization, you contribute. I think you learn more than the contribution. And I love their library, their bookstore. I bought a lot of books. And I always loved books. So I think, again, Eugene Peterson, you see him in person, walking in the campus. And that is just amazing. It's just a very good experience. And also with Susan Phillips, I work very closely with New College. And Craig, so nice to see you. Finally, we get to know each other more. And I continue to support the First Press. And then the other one is very important. Is this is my family. There's 3 grandkids, And then Andrew look this way daily. And he turned out to be great. He's a co-founder of an AI startup company. And he also doing a fund that I sponsor, doing a lot of very early stage, pre-early stage. And he's very, very smart. And from CMU. The old taller one, he played basketball with me, and he's a basketball team. And he also from Carnegie Mellon. Two of them are Carnegie Mellon. And the daughter-in-law, the one in the middle, and also from Carnegie Mellon. So we have a long history of Carnegie Mellon. And then I serve as a trustee and also as an advisor to the Dean Advisory Board of Engineering. And then the extreme right is Sunbin. And when Andrew told me that he's dating someone, and I said, who is that? And then he said, well, she's a litigation lawyer. I said, why on earth you're dating a litigation lawyer? And turned out that she's a very nice lady. And then when Isa and I, the two kids is too tired after the whole day skiing in Utah, and we had to pick up this lady. I put a big sign up, and then the lady come by and then said that I'm Sunbin, and then so we pick her up. I thought it's a Korean lady, and in the car he speak fluent Mandarin to me. I said, am I picking the wrong lady? And he said, no, that's me. And then I learned that in a young age, without her parents' support, she went to China, Nanjing, to study at local school. I show a lot of respect for a person, foreigner, able to survive in that local school, and also Beijing University eventually become a lawyer in Korea. And so we have three boys. So we have no girls, it's all boy, and that is kind of our family. But more important, the next slide. That's my mom before he passed away at the beachfront. And then some of you know, and I was very involved with the facility task force, and then with Bob Russell and Jim Childers. Some of you know them well, and learn a lot about their faith. And then even in the challenging, he's chairing Jim Childers. In the morning, he went to chemo, and then later on come and conduct the meeting. And I still remember we were building select the architecture. And then some of you know, and originally we were ready to go forward. There's a young man, and then came back and said that this is horrible design, and we had to throw it away. And then give credit to Jim Childers, and he said, let's be open-minded, and then listen to him. And eventually, this is the facility that we have. And then Bob Russell and I were very close friends. So one thing that I was decided is very important. Before I get that, so I was quite involved with Barbara, and Ted is here somewhere, and then Ted Streeter, and right here, perfect. And then Barbara, Sherry and Beth Streeter, and so we are co-chair of 2 capital campaigns, successfully fundraising on that, and then Jim Childers and Jim I have a lot of respect, and then Bob Russell is a very good friend, and then later on I will touch on, I was a big supporter of Mount Hermon. Some of you may like the place. And every year, Labor Day weekend, we were there as a family tradition. And but now we're so happy, the 3 young grandkids, they love that place. So they're asking to go in there, so we're just delighted. And then with that, I think I picked up a book I really like. It's called Finishing Strong by Steve Farrar. Highly recommend you pick up that book. And not many Bible characters finish strong. King David didn't finish strong. And so that book touched me a lot. And I decided I want to form an accountability group. We want to finish strong. So Bob Russell is one of the members. And then later on, I will share with you some other members. And then we have Bob Nielsen. Some of you may know Bob Nielsen. And so Bob Nielsen, by the way, I just saw Carlson Sherry there. So I think we're delighted to work on the capital campaign together, and tremendous help from tremendous leadership you have. And so, long story short, I think we decided to form an accountability group. Highly recommend. Every month we have one meeting, and then we have Bob Nielsen. I have Steve, former pastor, and I have in Noise, and even though moved down to Santa Barbara, thanks to COVID, right now instead of rotating to the different house, we have it in the Zoom call every Saturday, 10 to 12, and then once a month. And then we pick 2 books each time, and then we learn a lot with about chapter by chapter, and then we also spend half of time and pray for each other. And then we have a policy, anything we share, we keep it in confidence, not even share with our spouse. And turned out to be a very good, keep us grounded. And then we all come from a different background. And Michael Parks used to be also attending First Press, and then he also one of them. And then so we are delighted to have that. We learn a lot from that. And then back to Mount Hermon, highly recommend. And then they have great team. You know, I still very dearly Roger Williams, some of you may know, and then he passed away, but he had been a good inspiration for me. And of course, JR, Mike, Ron, you know, all this team, and David, the piano, I think it's just amazing. And that's a part of mine that every year, no matter how busy I am, I always go there. And a little bit on the career, back to this take risks with your eye open. So I was asked to be the CEO of Cadence Design. You may not be familiar with the company. Anything on your cell phone, anything electronics is using Cadence Designs for the design. So the company was quite in trouble, and then the stock down to $2.42. And then I was just sending Andrew to the CMU, and then send him to the Dome, to leave. And I phone call, 12 different phone calls from all the board members at Cadence. So I said, Lippo, can you come back? I said, what's so hurry? Keep calling me. He said, can you come back? I said, sure, tomorrow I will be back. They said, well, Lippo, can you step in to be the interim CEO? And I said, I never run a company. Forget about turning around. Are you guys kidding? He said, no, I think the team really want you. And so I told them, okay, I do it for 3 months while you're doing the search. And then they put me in the search committee, and I said, you know what, I'm too busy with customer, and this is a crisis situation, very close to bankrupt. And then so, maybe you guys should find someone better. And then, so I said, well, that's why we do a search. You should be a part of it. I said, well, I'm too busy. You guys do the search. When you found the right person, I can pass the key. And then so that I'll continue working on it. And then after, supposed to be 3 months, I think 2.5 months, the chairman coming, very smiling. I said, you found the CEO, so when can I give the key to? You can keep the key. I said, wait a minute, what is that? And so finally they said, well, you're going to be the CEO. By the way, even that interim period, I was struggling. I prayed with Ysa, and Ysa was so supportive. He said that, I think your mind is already set to do that, and then I will support you. And that's something I really appreciate, Ysa. And without her support, I won't be able to do it, because I had to drive every day from Piedmont to Santa Clara, 1.5 hours each way. And then I did it for 13 years. And then some of my customers, how long are you going to be there? You are the venture capitalist. You're going to flip it, and the next thing you're going to be back to VC. Turned out that I stayed along 15 years, including 2 years as chairman. And the company performed very well, and the market cap is almost 80 billion. When I took over, it's less than 600 billion, 0.6 billion. So anyway, that's something that, every night, to be candid with the first 3 weeks, was struggling. I can't sleep because, there's about 6,000 people under my watch. And then I had to let go 1,500 people. And then because company is such a bad shape. And good news is after I retire, and then the company almost have 12,000 employees. So we hire a lot of people, to recruit the talent. And then I also recruit someone that I trained for 12 years and then took over as a CEO. He's fantastic, Anirudh. And so in a way, I'm in good shape, passing to him and train him. And so I thought that, well, that's done with my career, and I continue to go back to my first love is venture investment. As you know, some of them know me well in the venture side. And then, I invest about 500 company. And out of 500 company, 145 public IPO, and then 95 successful trade sales. So I do a lot of startup, and from MIT, from Stanford, from a lot with Stanford and Berkeley. And then, so just a little bit my career. I always try to learn, do hard work to do the homework and learn. And so I always very passionate on the education. And one thing good about not finish my PhD, I have a chip on my shoulder. So I always try to learn more and work harder. And so some of the universities somehow see that I am very passionate about university. So I'm on the board of Carnegie Mellon. And in fact, one side story, when they invite me to be on Carnegie Mellon board, my wife strongly said no. I said, why? He said, Lippo, don't disturb our kids. I said, oh, okay. So I back off. Then finally I had to persuade my Andrew and Elliott approval for me to be on the CMU board. So finally they said, okay, Papa, you can join the board, but with one condition. Don't drop in unscheduled. And so you have to make appointment. I said, okay. And then, so one day I was on the way, trustee board meeting dinner, and then suddenly I text to my younger son. I said, well, I'm in town. Do you have time for dinner? And can I set an appointment? Tonight, I'm free. So I was dilemma in the bus, and I told my sit next to me, the trustee, and then he just already shout to the driver, stop and get him out of the bus. So I did, and then turned out to be the best decision I make. And so that's the reason I joined the board, and then I'm on the engineering advisory board. And the Berkeley side, I'm on the two advisory boards, School of Engineering, and then also the new school called School of Compute, Data Science, and Society, and then the short form called CDSS. And Jennifer is a good friend of mine from Microsoft. He refused to leave my house until I say yes. And then so finally I joined, and then turned out to be, some of you know Databricks, and a great company, I'm an investor. And then it's really a great company. And also, La Luca, on the OPEC system, many companies I'm involved. And then, so it's a great school, Berkeley. Then I'm very excited about, of course, my MIT. He said, Lippo, you didn't finish your PhD. Why don't you come back and finish? I'm too old for that. And I told the new president. And then Ananta is a School of Engineering. You should come back and rejoin the advisory board. And we have decided to go big time into fusion, nuclear fusion. And I said, Lippo, you should come back and help on the Edison nuclear and others. So I decided to rejoin back. And then one thing that I really like is how to use AI machine. I invest a lot, and then in the medical application, and then like the prostate cancer, more accurate biomarker, and then also some of the rare diseases. And so I decided to join UCSF advisory board. They call it executive council. They don't have a board, so this is running all the budget, running all the engineering research, and so a lot to do with the medical. In fact, one of them, if you hopefully you don't need that, is Eddie Chen, is a very good friend of mine. He's a #1 neurosurgeon at UCSF, and then he just started a company doing using the brain wave, using semiconductor to drive more accurate the communication. So, about 82% accurate. So like Steve Hodkin, you don't have to punch a keyboard. Using the brain wave, you can do that. And in fact, you're going to do a foundation model to decode the brain. And I learned a lot about the brain, how this side is doing the communication, that side is for vision. It's just fascinating to learn from him. And I like him so much, I support one of the faculty. He said, we need to keep this guy. Can you endow the chair for him and for epilepsy? And so I endowed that, and hopefully he will do a startup I can invest. So I think, long story short, it's just a lot of learning. So as long as you're willing to learn, humble to learn, I think there's a lot of opportunity. Finally, I was asked by Mark Leperton. As you know, he stepped down from First Press to be a fuller board president. So he recruited one of my partners. I introduced him, to be on the board. And then one day he was speaking here, and I said, "Oh, wow." And said, "Lepo, I think the time comes nearer now. You got to be involved." So he basically convinced me to join the Fuller board. And so Kathy, I work with Kathy a lot, and then working on the Fuller side. And again, I learned more than what I can contribute, and even though I endow a professorship there. So I think a couple of things I just want to summarize before open up for questions. I think all of you know Al Palmer. He's one of the best teachers, and every time he preaches, I take a lot of notes, and it's just amazing, and how much we appreciate and we miss him a lot. And even the old age, New College have that Saturday, the whole day. I think Susan told me that he tried to have him sit down, but he insists to stand up to do the whole few hours of, that kind of a role model and inspiring for me. And then there's one Tim. Tim is a very good friend of mine. We have a place in Hawaii. I always go to his church to attend. So every time went there, I went to his church. And my wife and I would just just have a fellowship with him. And it's just wonderful to do that. And so I think, what I like to do is basically, these are the few Bible words that mean a lot to me. And I mentioned earlier, when Jesus asked 3 times, "Do you love me?" And then feed my sheep. And so in some way, we all go back to, doing either our fishing or our work. Many times we thought that our intelligence can do it, but you have to lean on God. Every morning I try to pray about it, and then before I sleep, I like to read and unwind some of my burden. And then the people always asking me, "Lipo, with so much stress you have, how do you relieve that?" So one thing is I swim every morning, and every place I have a swimming pool. I swim every morning. If the meeting starts from 7 o'clock, I start swimming at 6. And then one time I was in the hotel, and I said, "Well, the flight is at 5. Can you guys open at 3:30 for me to swim?" And then find some of the hotel is quite nice. He opened up for me to swim, except Las Vegas. Las Vegas, the swimming time is like noon. I said, "Who people swimming at noon time? I need to swim at 6, so at least one to open up at 6 for me." So that's why I always stay in that hotel. And so, the tax collector, I think that I felt very strongly. And then the other one is very, give me the peace, is trusting the God with all your heart and lean not your own understanding. With all your ways submit to Him, He will make your paths straight. And finally, this one that is almost my daily, act justly and love mercy. And then sometimes people that you touch may not be meaning a lot to people, but Jesus cares about that. And then one thing that I always remember, if you remember that story about the widow with 2 coins, and then Jesus said about that he gave more than anybody else, the rich people. And so to me, it doesn't matter how much you have, and then just giving back and then helping. I think that's what at the Judgment Day, and then this is how you show, whether you're good and faithful servant. I think that's a very important message. And these are the few books, and actually our Bible study, our accountability group, I always ask different pastors to give me a suggestion on book. And, Charlene is very kind to give me a lot of suggestions. And then also Nancy and John from Menlo Church, and then also the Transforming the Board, the Bear with Christ that I used to be on the board until I become too busy. And then someone also recommended this renovation of the heart. And actually, it's very interesting. Every time we pick 2 books, somehow every chapter sync up so well, amazing God leading. And then I think Ian asked me to read this book called to Change the World rather than the world changing you. I thought that was a profound impact to me. And then, so I think there's a lot of more books that we read through, but I just highlight this few that I really like. So I think with that, I just want to, to summarize a few things. One, first of all, I think some of you know that I'm supposed to be slowly retiring. I'm 65, and I love a company called Intel. And Pat Gelsinger is a very close friend of mine, good brother. He asked me to step in for 2 years to be on the board. Finally, I stepped up for personal reason. And then later on, the board reached out to me December, January, February, and March, and asking me to come back to run the company. And it's an iconic company, and it's very important for United States. And then I give a lot of thoughts. And a good friend of mine told me that, Lippo, you have an impeccable reputation, and people love you a lot. But this one is 50 times harder than Cadence Design. And then I want to make sure that you're grounded. And also want to remind you, you have a great reputation, but people only remember the last one. So if the last one you fail, you're always the failure. And then one thing he also encouraged me is that, Lippo, if you decided not to do it, company have to hire somebody else. And if it turned out to be bad, you will regret the rest of your life. And there's a lot of friends of mine, previously with Intel, and they all encouraged me to do it. So finally, I decided, I decided to do it. And also, it's a good platform to witness my, my commitment to the industry that I love so much. So that's kind of my story. And then the only drawback is, this job, I thought that I can be very low profile. Turned out that, everywhere, every newspaper is, whatever I do something is being broadcast. And then the other part is also the security to take on this role. Ysa hated it. And then, and you can see someone walking, and it's my security guard, and I make sure that I'm safe. And even though I said about, this place is very safe, but somehow is that available, you still have to have someone there here. So I think, that's kind of a thing that I have to really live with, and then the constraint. With that, I would like to open up. I think more important to have questions. I think there's one here.
So, Lip-Bu and I go back. The first time I met Lip-Bu was in Mount Hermon, and he challenged me to a ping pong game.
Yes.
And Lip-Bu turns out to be a merciless ping pong player, and his wife also. But every Mount Hermon retreat always found Lip-Bu and his wife and his kids at the ping pong table.
Yes. I used to be the primary school, college at the school team. But now getting taller, so I had to bend down a little bit more, so not as good. Any other questions? Yes?
When did you become a member of First Press? What year?
I think 1980 something. I became a member, and then actually our wedding actually conducted by Ron Thompson, and a wonderful pastor. And then so I think the one thing is my grandfather is a pastor. As you mentioned, I pray that God don't call me as a pastor. So I always supporting all the different pastors. And then sometimes you don't see me too much in the Berkeley First Press because our two sons and their grandkids are all in the Palo Alto area. And so, I'm a big basketball fan. Is there a picture? I think, that's why I think I showed the picture, if I can go back. We are big fan of Warrior. And so we go there almost every home game. We are there. And then, yeah. And then, Joe, the owner of Warrior, is a very good friend of mine. I bought his house in Atherton. And then, so I sit 3 rows behind him. And so recently I was shouting a lot. I almost lost my voice. And then tried to cheer for the team. And so that is our favorite. Any other question?
Have you taught the New College, Berkeley?
New College, Berkeley, have I taught? No, I didn't. They got invited. So anyway, it's it's a great organization, make an impact, with Eli Lilly support, and then some of this, how student. In fact, one thing that I'm very passionate about is a lot of, I talked to a good friend of mine, Satya, in running Microsoft. In the COVID situation, everybody was about physical health. And I find out the biggest problem right now is the mental health. And that's a real problem in the United States and also outside the country. In Singapore, I'm very close to. It's a big problem. And then how do we help that mental? Because it's affecting the productivity. And my older sister passed away because of depressions. And something is very dear to me. That's why Eddie Chan's work, I think after the Parkinson, helping the patient, the next thing he's working on is the depression. So he's doing a lot of brain surgical. And after that, he said, let me show you the real person. And then this moment he's in depression. I tune the frequency, and then he become very happy and jumping up and down and singing. And I said, well, instead of you manually tuning, can you have a sensor to reactivate when the patient starting to feel depressed? And so that's something that I think he will be a big innovator for that. And I said, anytime you're going to start a company, I'm jump on it. I'm going to be an investor. And he also addressing the Alzheimer and epilepsy. And I think he's going to be a Nobel Prize winner. And he lives in Piedmont, and it's a walking distance from my house. Yes?
Two questions. What 5 stocks would you recommend? and how many of the IPOs you've bought have been profitable?
Yeah, I don't give advice. Yes, so I have five very good investors. You can keep track of them. One is Couture Management. I'm investor and advisor. And then Fidelity, and then BlackRock. And then there's one firm called Parnassus. Todd used to be at First Press. He's a brilliant fund manager. So I have some of this, and there's another 3 startup. They are very good at their area of specialty. And there's a guy called Ram. It's Octogen Capital. I invest a lot with him. And then he have always very detailed research oriented. And then he have some specific stock that he pick and he go big time, like Databricks, one of the big investment he did, done very well. And then it's a very important platform. So that one I like a lot. And then there's a company I also invest called Perplexity, if you're not familiar. And then their search engine I really like compared to Google search. This is a conversation search. He used to work from OpenAI, so he knows conversation. So if you ask a topic, try it, because Perplexity is free. And then so you can just check, the topical topic. Then he will send to you 3 questions that you should have asked. So you just keep going, and then if you spend a couple of hours, you become the expert in that topics. And that's something I use a lot. And so I think there's some, and I'm big time in the open source. And then so some of the company that I invest, like Together.ai, and then AI safety become very important. So I back 2. There's one called Virtual AI, 3 professors, one from Illinois, one from Berkeley, Dao Song, and he's really good. Actually, it's very fantastic. And then the other one is the Carlos from Stanford. Then another professor I like a lot called Chris Ray. He's really the expert in AI. I like him so much. I put together the 2 funds for him, Factory 1, Factory 2. And then he create a lot of great company that most of them I invest. Sambanova, the Snorkel, and then a long list of companies that he backed Together.ai. And then he's a really good professor at Stanford. and he formed a lot of new company. It's all the frontier of the AI. And so I spend a lot of time. Every weekend I have walked with him and then learned a lot about some of this new breakthrough AI. There's a 5 layer of AI where the focus right now is on application, model, and solution side. And then the infrastructure, Intel can play. NVIDIA, Jensen is a good friend of mine. AMD, Lisa is a good friend of mine. Then you move up the hyperscale, and then the foundation model, that need a lot of money, like OpenAI. And Anthropic is really good. Dario, CEO, is a good friend of mine. And so I think you just have to build a stack up. I invest a lot in that area. So I think, one thing good about, start from small. When I do Warden, I only have 3 million under management. Today, about 5 billion under management. So I think, again, you just have to be humble and then do a lot of homework. And also, I try to surround myself with all the smart people. I learn from them. And then some of this big fun, Parnassus is a very good one. Todd used to be at Berkeley's first press. And then he is very good and very high integrity. I always admire talking to him to learn some of the investment thesis he have. And then some of the company that he invests are really outstanding. So that's kind of my approach to investing. Yes.
Question back here. Thank you, Lip-Bu, for your story. It was just amazing and inspiring. Now, in the fall, I was reading a lot about Intel's massive challenges financially and business-wise. But now you're in charge, and the tariffs have been introduced, and I'm wondering, how are you thinking about the whole tariff situation and bringing production back to the United States, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a good question. I spent quite a bit of time with Howard, and this is a new Secretary of Commerce. And before that, Gina is a very close friend of mine. Yesterday we talked, and she's from the Democrat, and then Howard is from the Republican. And then, of course, a couple of key people, David Sack, he's a key person at the Trump administration, and I spent quite a bit of time with him. He's a kind of advisor on AI and crypto, and so he's really good. And of course, Gerard, the son-in-law, and Ivanka, a very close friend of mine. So I have a lot of more insight into what they're doing. So I think the tariff, the way I understand from Howard, Elon Musk is trying to cut $1 trillion of expenses. And in some ways, the right thing to do, but I'm not agree with the method they're doing it. And because I think accountability on the government side, like any company, we need to have accountability. And then so far, the country have no accountability. So it's about time. But the method of doing it, I disagree. And then in terms of tariff, back to your answer, sometimes we backfire. I think, like for example, right now we try to, have the tariff, and then Trump always like to negotiate. So every country is negotiating different agreement. And then you can always see that which country are more quiet, that means they already have a deal. And which one is still vocal and screaming, they don't have a deal yet. So that's something that you just have to watch out for it. And then the other part is right now China also reciprocal tariff. And for example, right now, like Intel, we have a fab. Anything, China is very smart. And then they say, well, it's not just assembly. We have Chengdu assembly. We can avoid the tariff. Now it's the origin. So if the origin comes from US, I got hit by the 125% tariff. So those are the ones that we try to communicate with to the administration. Actually, you get the opposite side of the benefit, actually hurting the US company. And so we try to explain to them. So far, they are not listening, but we're still pushing hard. And then one thing good about some of the Congress, Ted Cruz and others are very important. And I'm reaching out to them and I make sure that they're understanding the impact, how it's going to affect the US. And if we are not careful, Jerry Diamond is a CEO of JP Morgan, the largest bank. He's a very good friend of mine. He said that, well, if not careful, second half, we're going to go down to recessions. And so that is a serious issue that we have to deal with. And in the long run, may be good, but the short term, the midterm election can be affecting them. And so I think something that I think they're starting to realize, I think they're back off 90 days period and then try to sort it out. And then Trump starting to distanced himself from Peter. He's a proponent of the tariff. And so again, I mean, you just have to watch and then try to, bring the message to them that some of these are affecting us, U.S. company. And then so something like a good friend of mine, Jim Farley, he running Ford Motor. He said, well, this tariff actually hurting us a lot. And I said, did you send a letter or present a summary? He said, we did, and then, but they are not quite listening. And he said, Ford Motor, the cheapest car after the tariff is $55,000. How am I going to make money? This is the lowest car that I used to have able to make money. Now with 55. So I think, at the end, I think it's just try and error. I think Trump likes to see CEO, so I think everybody going to try to see Morocco or White House. Right now the CEO job become more challenging now. I have the government affairs direct report to me, and because the CEO got to be involved. So I think it makes it a little bit more complex, but that's the fact of life. We have to do it. So hopefully I answer your question. As candid as I can.
The questions will go with the mic.
Yes.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you so much for your testimony. Love seeing the scriptures at the key moments in your life. That was really meaningful. You're in a unique position to talk about AI, obviously, and I'm interested in hearing about your perspective on it, but also bringing in your Christian faith, and how do you view it as a Christian?
Yes. Yeah, I think AI is kind of impacting all our life, and you just can't ignore it. But the key thing is how to embrace it in the positive way. So that's why I'm heavily investing in AI safety, and then AI security is very important. And then a lot of time people are watching about the AI. The AI is not new. It's 60 years old, it's 70 years old. But it's right now, it's an explosive of data. And how do you protect the data for privacy, for some of the real data from enterprise? You cannot compromise the data. And so those parts become very important. And the government try to regulate, but they're not quite understanding how to regulate. And so I think that's a big issue. I think the AI, right now the big thing is, can the AI replace human? That's a lot of people asking. Answer is no. But the human that are using the AI is a big advantage. If you don't embrace it, I think you're going to fall behind. And then so AI right now, the foundation model is getting very smart. The reinforced learning is very quickly. And then the other part is, give credit to OpenAI, Anthropic, and others. And they really making tremendous progress on this. We call it the AGI, even though it's a multiple year away, but they're making tremendous progress on that. And then give thanks to Google that, this whole transformer, I think is big time to change. But now it's starting to move to the next level, and then more into, you call it the intelligent, they can predict things, and not just to capture the data. Now they can make the forecast and predicting. And then a lot of time, AI, you can use it to drive efficiency of the organization. So a lot of mundane tasks, you can have AI doing it more intelligently and more effectively. So I think one part is how do you use AI to drive efficiency? The other part is how to use AI to drive new revenue, new business model. And that's tremendous. And that's why now is the frontier is the application and new model. Like I mentioned earlier, how to decode the brain, and then so that you can do some decision that when the brain are not working, that one can take over. And then of course the one big area is the ethics. How to use AI. Still human got to be involved, because otherwise can be chaos. Some of the decision they don't have a human emotions, and that part they don't have. So I think the best thing I look at it is how do you use AI for your daily life? Don't you like to have an agent help you to managing your daily tasks and daily thing you need to do? I use that, and it helped me to more efficient in terms of you can do more things, and also deeper understanding of where the things, that subject that you want to analyze. So I think those are all the positive side. The negative side really have to prevent the hacker, the bad actors, and then they can really mess up your life, and also the privacy we need to protect. So those are the things that I talk to Microsoft a lot, talking to Cisco and many others, hyperscale guys. They are the big player. And then how do you make sure that the safety, and Satya realized that. Satya put a lot of effort on the safety, security. And then is it enough? No, not enough. So I think they had to recruit more people to do that, to make sure that all of us are being protected. So I think that's kind of my personal view. Yes. Hi.
Lip-Bu, thank you
Mark.
for taking your time to come and talk to us, and what a privilege it is to listen to you. I have a question that is not a technological or business question, so we can get back to the main course of things in a second. But I've wondered, as I've grown up in the church, why it is that fewer and fewer people are coming to church. And so my question is, do you think that the proportion of business and political leaders who believe that they need God is increasing or decreasing? And the follow-on question would be, any different answer for technological leaders?
Good question. So I think before I mentioned about that, one of my accountability members, every month he attending, is Brad Askin. And he is wonderful. And I learned so much from him, the insight of some of the books reading, and a big encouragement for me. I know that you're friends of Brad Askin. And so I'm very blessed with some of my members, brothers, that part of my accountability, hold me accountable and learn a lot from them. Back to your question, I think clearly it's quite alarming, to be candid with you. And I think you saw the survey and how many % of the pastor thinking about changing job. And I think you saw that number is alarming. And then the other part is, clearly, are we relevant? And especially for the younger generation. And I talked to my two sons a lot. And he said, Papa, I think, if you look around, many of us look, I didn't think, did we accept people different? And that's something that we need to embrace. And then secondly, it become more relevant to the younger generation. And sometimes they don't want to come to church. We have to go reaching out to them in different media to reaching out to them. And then they have something that we all created by God. And then we have some vacuum inside, but we are not addressing that. And so I think it needs to be a more outreach. And so I think that's why I was involved with transforming the Bay with Christ. And then all the church have all so bogged down with their own internal problem. And rather than looking out for the whole city, look at the whole region, how can we play a role and encourage our member to be reach out? And then that is our mission. And love God wholeheartedly, and then your neighbor. Neighbor is very broad, depending on how you define the neighbors. And then we have to be more outward-looking. And then that's why I was involved with multiple churches. And even though I love Berkeley a lot, it's my home. But meanwhile, and some of the churches do the right things, and then try to really more reach out to the. And then one thing good is, we are so close to Berkeley, and then we should have more students from Berkeley to come here, and I don't see as much. And then because our two grandkids is in the Palo Alto area, because our grandkids, my wife want to be close to them, so went to the Bible study. So we went to attend the church they belong, called Grace Presbyterian Church. Some of you may be familiar, Iron King and David Jones. And I just look at they have 3 services. 90% are youngster and in college. And I said, well, there's something that we should think about. How do we be relevant to them? And especially in Berkeley, so many good students here. And then we should play a big to the university community and reach out to them. And that's why this particular corner is so important. Channing we should play a role. I mean, something that we should think about, think big, rather than just looking internally. We have to look outside because, God asking us to be a witness. And the other part I like a lot, since I'm doing work in the technology side, there's an organization called Faith, Work, and Tech. And then some of you may know Paul Taylor and also Denise Lee. They are amazing. I'm a supporter of them. And then clearly, we have a mission. We are not just depend on the pastor to give a good sermon. We all play a role to the ambassador to Christ. And then can we play a role in our workplace? And we are the pastor in the workplace. And then how do we have the work and faith and technology, embrace the technology in the right way, and then have a Christian view of how can we use the technology to our advantage. And then in fact, there's a global media outreach company I also support, and using the advanced media and the AI to spread the gospel globally using the internet. And then there's organization I support because anything to witness to God and spread the good news is our job. And then no matter what work we are in, and then we are the ambassador and with the light and source to the world. So I think I was encouraged, think big, think more outside rather than just comfortably in our own community, and something that I just want to encourage. Yes. Yes.
So thank you for spending your morning with us. And it's encouraging to see such a principled person and a person of faith being such a business leader, which is not necessarily experience I've had in different places I've been. But so when you were talking about being awake and having to make a decision, hard decisions, and thinking about things like letting go thousands of people, I'm sure that there are probably even bigger and more difficult decisions. And I'm wondering if you could talk about an experience of either difficulty or something that's ethical, and how you went through that. What was the incident, and what kind of principles did you rely on?
Yeah, very good question. So I think at Cadence and Intel, there's a lot of difficult decisions I had to make. And I think some of you saw that I flattened the organization, make some of the changes, and next week even more changes coming. Those are not easy decisions to make. And it's very important in your life to have some good mentors. And then when I was young, I don't think I need that. But getting older, I think I'm starting to appreciate the mentors play a very big role. And then some of my mentors are the different CEO at the big enterprise. And then like COVID situation, like some of this tariff situation, it's really good to learn from each other and what are the decisions we can make. And so I usually, when the team is very emotionally charged, one side is very strong about this view and the other side, and I ask some of my mentors, do you have the same problem? He said, Lippo, we have the same problem. And I said, how do you solve that? One thing good about it, we have this bonding of the mentorship. What I share with them, they don't share with anyone else. And likewise, they also asking me, I share with him or her, and that we have a privileged relationship. So in a way, you learn a lot about the decision, at least give you think about, what apply to my situations. And so there's no right or wrong, but at least I always tell the team, what, I need to sleep overnight. But actually, I'm not sleeping. I'm doing a lot of homework. And people know and respect me, knowing Lippo will do his homework. And then later on I come back, I make sure that we may not able to get consensus, but at least the people that I decided to the different direction that they want, they know that I've done my homework, and that's my sincere decision on behalf of the company to do that. They come along, and they know that you honestly analyze it, and then you make the decision. So sometimes it's not right or wrong, but you just happen to think through the topics enough, and then do the right things, and by compare notes with others. And so I think you find your own answer, let's put it that way. And so I think that's my guiding principle. And of course, you pray about it, and then you ask for wisdom. This is the right thing to do. It may not be popular, but my job is not to be popular, and then you just do what is best for the company. And I basically use that to ask the team, let's come along, do something that is the right decision for the company. I hope I answered your question. Yes.
Have you ever been to Cyberjaya?
Cyberjaya.
Yeah.
I think so, but not too often.
Because it's in Malaysia. I was a Fulbright in
Yes.
Cyberjaya. I had
Yes.
1,500 students at their high-tech university.
That's correct.
And they need a church. They don't have a church.
We also had to be, it's a Muslim country, and then we had to do it delicately. And then, so I think those things I will consider. I think, I'm planning the later part of this year we'll visit, Prime Minister request. And then it's a very important site for us, for Penang is a big operation. Penang is my favorite place. And then a lot of beautiful beaches. And then food is really good, so sorry.
I have a double-edged question. As Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun, right?
Yes.
And so how does that, from your point of view, relate to AI? And also in conjunction with this question, how do we, communist is, China is an atheist country, but there is a growing church, I understand,
Yes.
in China. And how do we make that bridge?
Yeah. So, before I took on this job at Intel, and 5 years ago, I almost go there every month. So know China really well. And then we have a lot of investment in China. And now because of geopolitical situation, a little bit more tricky. And so we have China activity, even though I'm watching, but I'm not personally involved because of sensitivity, US and China. And so I think, China, I used to be on the board of SMIC. Richard Chang is a good Christian. He even helped his company, big fab, have a church inside the fab and then the campus. And so, and then some of the church, I think if you go to China, and some of the official church, you need to bring passport to make sure that you can get in. And then some of the church that, for the local, and then the pastor's script had to be reviewed by the government. And so again, something that we had to work through the system. When the Regent College and right now Fuller, we have an active program in China. And then so again, it's just exciting to see some of the excitement. But meanwhile, under the administration in China, it's more restricted. And I still remember, the one thing could have a different, amazing, invisible hand. When the Mount Hermon thinking about a joint venture in this, I can't remember, something slipping deer or something, is another camp in China. And then turned out that they asked me, Lippo, can you check on this organization, whether it's legitimate, is a good partner for us? So I called my office in Beijing. I said, Beijing, my office report to me. I said, can you go and check this organization? And I said, Lippo, we called, nobody picked up the phone. And I say, okay, this is a camp. Of course, nobody picked up the phone, but you have to keep trying. Finally, they get hold of it. But it's so funny. A very good friend of mine is a very good Christian called Promote. Promote always speaking in the Silicon Valley breakfast place. And he's a very good Christian. And then finally, he proposed to me, he said, Lippo, there's a company, they're going to do the camp. You should invest. And I said, what's the name? Same name. So I said, okay. And then I checked out pretty good. So I told JR and also that time with Mike, and Mike, the current former director, I said, oh, it's okay to do a joint venture. They are legitimate. And so sometimes God have a very amazing hand. One side coming, I have no idea how to check on this one. From the business side, it doesn't seem like legitimate. But meanwhile, on the other side, my good brother that I know, I trust, said, Lippo, I'm investing. And Lippo, you should join me to invest. Turned out to be the partner for Mount Hermon. So sometimes God have a very amazing hand. Sometimes you're just amazed and how awesome our God is. I don't know how much time we have. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad, Martha Chan. I'm glad you talked a little bit about China. That was my question. I'm glad you mentioned about that. Because, we all heard about this. China is our competitors. U.S. is competitor, technology-wise. Is that really true from your perspective? Because you invest a lot to China, and also you kind of have so many different programs. Is that really true, or that was just a political slogan? Okay, that's one question. The second question is that personally, we're all kind of 65, 70 years old, but the AI is involved in everything. How do you give us, old people like us, of AI? What is our first step? We need to know how AI can really help us. We are not technology, not science background. So please advise us.
Okay, so two part of the question. So first part of the question, clearly, on the current Washington, they look at China as number one enemy. And then my personal humble is these two countries are the biggest country in the world. Being enemy to each other actually is not going to help the world. And so I think we need to kind of find a way to coexist and collaborate and compete. And so I think I kind of strongly believe in globalization, but something that the recent administration and this globalization is almost dead. And every country protecting their own turf is not very healthy. And in some way, it's better to have some collaboration, some coexisting. Actually, would be good for the world peace. And then by doing, create this either some kind of trade war or, invisible war, the game is very dangerous. They all have nuclear weapons. And the stake is very high. And then just one mistake, it can trigger a lot of things happen. So I think we have to be extremely careful what we are doing here as a country. And in some way, to be candid with you, current environment, U.S. become more and more isolated. And a lot of our allies can't even support as an ally. Like Singapore right now being taxed by 10%, we have a surplus with U.S. and then not a deficit with U.S. So why are we have to pay 10%? That is really questionable. So hopefully they will work out something the next few months. And then the other part, you try to restrict a lot of technology go to China. And I always tell the Washington, now we have MIT, we have Stanford, we have Berkeley, they are great schools. They also have great schools. Beida, Tsinghua, Fudan, they are world class. And so, are you so surprised about DeepSeek? And actually it's a poor man architecture. They've done a very smart way on architecture, come out people shocking. How come all this, turn out to be that DeepSeek is not even startup to be an AI company. It's a hedge fund. They are buying a lot of GPU from NVIDIA through Singapore. Now the US government is questioning Singapore, why do you sell it to them? But basically the body is not to build AI, build it for their own hedge fund trading. Want to have the most advanced. And then if you look closely, it's all the technology architecture, very smart way to do it, rather than brute force like OpenAI or Anthropic. They need 1 billion each model. And so I look at it from the AI, I think the golden opportunity is more accurate and more reliable and more specific application solution. And then if you can provide that most accurate, reliable, and secure, actually is better than all this. A lot of enterprise, we don't use OpenAI because they want your data and so that they can refine and learning. But the moment you share the data, it's gone. You have no control. So again, those are the things that we have to think through it. So competition is there, and then China is coming strong. And then if you look at the last book of the Bible, the red one comes from the north. That is China. And are we surprised? No. Are they talented? Absolutely, they are very talented. And then, but I don't agree with Xi Jinping policy. And then I think it's too ambitious and it's too isolated. And then rather than Deng Xiaoping or the previous president, and then they are more open, they are more pro-business. And so I think hopefully both sides will find a way to coexist. And then if we try to depress China, China have their own way. In fact, Europeans are going to China now. And then so in a way, it's kind of country, the world become very divided. And then some of my good friends from Japan and Korea, they put, what is your advice? And I said, well, try to coexist the long as you can, because they're all under pressure. Are you on the China camp or are you in the US camp? They are struggling to make that decision. And then so politically they try to be aligned with US, but like some of the countries in Asia say, the number one trading partner is China, no more US. And so financially I need them. And how can I pick side? I can't pick side. I will be doomed. So I think it's unfortunately when the two countries, the big powerhouse, against each other, and then the smaller country get affected big time. And so I think that's kind of my personal view. The second question you have in terms of AI, how to learn, I don't have any particular, and then but just keep reading and keep listening. And then one thing is, Jensen is a good friend of mine from NVIDIA. He is a dominant force, and then he have a lot of online speeches. Listen to it, and like the GTC, every year his keynote, I always listen carefully, and because he's driving the future of the leadership. And then same thing with Satya, same thing with Amazon, Matt Garman, and Andy Jassy. The whole retail is changing. And then the other one is Federal Express, the CEO. End of this month, I'm having dinner with him. And the whole supply chain logistic, how the tariff were affecting everyone. Clearly, I think inflation will go up. And then if you are buying car, buy now. And later on, it will be more expensive. And so I think those are things that you can learn by listening.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Antonio. I'm actually one of the elders here now.
Oh, good.
Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of insight into your personal life. I think it was very, very appreciative or admire that. But I wanted to touch a little bit on the issue of mental health. I have a younger sister, older by tech standards, that works for one of the large tech businesses in the Valley. And she's one of the older employees there. And for the last few years, she has been almost like on the constant threat of losing her job, for a number of reasons that you probably know. And I think every time I talk to her, she kind of laments the days in which there was more collaboration, it was a gentler environment. But instead, she talks about how cutthroat the environment has become, how competitive things are, in which success is almost equal to squashing the competition. And so much is articulated in terms of dominance of one over the other. And I think it had affected her in a great deal. And in some way, that people like my son, which is only 15 years old. So I wanted to get a little bit of an insight or a perspective from somebody who has such a wide influence, spread in the industry, about what is your thinking about how all of this is actually shaping our youth altogether, because I do feel it and I see it almost like on a daily basis, and I think it's becoming a bit of a pressure cooker for everybody, and almost like kind of like narrow-mindedness to what success is entailed. I know that as an institution, as a church here, we want to offer kind of a sanctuary for that, kind of a shelter environment, not to having to be under this constant pressure. Thank you.
Good question. Very dear to my heart. So I think the younger generation, this is a very challenging environment, and but I think God and Jesus' mission is multiply and grow, and I want to be more positive. And even with all this depressing environment, and I always spend time with the younger generation. There's so much opportunity in the world, and you look at the positive side. And then some of the decision, I think we are all in. We have to make the decision with the new generation in mind, and the world getting better for the young generation. And then if we do something like environment and other things affecting the younger generation future, I think we are doing them a disservice from the leadership point of view. So one thing that very dear to my mind is that administration right now cut back the some of them maybe in the university will realize that 15% cap on the F&A, the facility, and I think you know very well. And then I sit on a couple of board at the university. The biggest challenge is when we review the financial, it may be some of the university is facing a 300 to 500 million shortfall, and then across the board we are cutting right now. So I was talking to some of the leadership in Washington. We keep on telling the world we want to be the leader in technology. Meanwhile, you're cutting back some of this research, and a lot of research grants are cutting back. And then from the national research and all the DARPA are cutting back. And so in a way, it's affecting the innovation that we need to do in the research. And so something that dear to me, that if we want to continue the leadership, you really need to drive more research, more supporting the university. And I think some of the schools like Harvard and a few schools starting to stand up to Trump administration and then disagree with some of the policy imposed on them. So it's something that you guys should watch closely, because this one is affecting our younger generations. And then a lot of our immigration, if you look at all the startup companies, many are immigrant. I'm immigrant from Singapore, Malaysia. And then if we don't address that, a lot of great students actually don't apply to US anymore. And we are losing a lot of those talented young people. They are going some other places for education. And that's something that is hurting for me, and to see that happening. Nothing against the administration, but I just felt that they should hurt. This is something actually counterproductive. We need to do that. And then the other part is, it's very important to look at not just for cutthroat fighting for each other, and then it's more important to collaborate. And that's always my belief, to do that. And then even my competitor, AMD and NVIDIA, I told them that, hey, we are good friends, not because I'm a CEO of Intel, you don't talk to me anymore. And so we like to collaborating on some of the 86 consortium and others, so that we can embrace each other, find areas that we can coexist. And I think that's the best way to think through, more open-minded. And then the younger generation, I tell you, AI is taking over, and you should really focus on some of the AI, some combination AI plus, and then either chemistry or medical, and then or physical, and then using AI to drive more innovation. I think the future is so exciting. It's just I call it the second ending. The gold mine is in front, and so it's so super. I wish I have 48 hours, but I only have 24 hours. So I think the future is bright. You guys should really don't feel depressed, and then do something exciting, and then take a deep breath, and then God asking all of us. One thing God I really appreciate is God is so creative. He creating the world, creating the more you know about the technology, you realize God have an invisible hand. Our mental brain, no matter how smart we are, even the AI, how smart we are, is basically more and more compute power. The biggest problem right now is energy. And that's why I'm spending a lot of time on energy, how to do the cooling, how to drive the efficiency. All the new product from NVIDIA come out, the power is so high. I think we will underestimate 3 to 4 times the power requirement on the world. And every hyperscale guy want to take the power, even 3 Mile Island, out from the grid. I mean that all the population going to be suffering. And so those are the things that we need to pay attention to it, find a more elegant way to solve the energy problem, and then we should put the energy more in the productive, exciting area rather than feel depressed and sitting at home. And so that's kind of, you have a choice. So I decided to be more, do something helping the future generation and then make an impact to their life. I think it's more important. So I know the time is coming up. If I can, you'll join me for prayer, that would be great. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the time of fellowship. Thank you that you give me the chance to share my faith and how we can't live without you. And daily, hourly, we depend on you for wisdom, for guidance, and then for our work, for our daily life, and our family, and very dear to the family, and be the steward to them, as a parent, as a supporter. And then, you taught me a lot, not to be a parent, to be friends to my sons and friends to my grandson. And then that is a big turnaround for me. And then rather than being a parent, and all of us, pray that will give us wisdom in our daily life, and pray that we give glory to you, and be a goodness witness, light and salt, make an impact to the world. And then we're looking forward when we see you. You will judge us as we hope we all can get the wording from you, good and faithful servant, and then so that we can live up our faith and more like you, and then carry the cross, and then to be witness for you. Bless our time and bless the First Press that we all love dearly. And then at this corner, we can be shine and be witness to all the students, all the community, and extend the community to the whole Bay Area. And then we pray that and give Charlene and all the pastor and leader wisdom to continue to drive the First Press, and then to glorify you and be a witness to you. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Lip-Bu. Thanks so much. Wonderful. So we thank you, everybody, for being here, and you can take that one if you want.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah. Just, we wanted a captive audience, but especially around issues around immigration and what's happening, next Sunday, 11:30, up in G202, a Living Sanctuary class is starting up. There's going to be some really beautiful voices in the room of people that are really impacted with their own families about what's happening right now. So 11:30, April 27th, okay?
And let's thank our volunteers who made
Yes.
breakfast and everything happen this morning.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
And
All
is
right.
there another Men's Connect in the future?
Yes.
What month, Daly?
May.
Excellent.
May 17.
Very good. Thank you all for being here. And Lip-Bu, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And great questions. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Yay. Thank